Welcome back to another episode of Little Miss. Today's episode is Kaila. Her book, Fetishized, releases this month and centers around the sexualization and fetishization of Asian women, which is also going to be the main topic of this podcast. I basically want like an introduction of you, your book, why you chose to write it.
Yeah, definitely. The title of the book is Fetishized, and it's about the fetishization of Asian women, but through like the lens of my personal experience. So it's heavily focused on like the early 2000s when I was like in my early 20s, and really analyzes a lot of media that I grew up with that was fetishy, like the Harajuku girls and like Memoirs of a Geisha, Fast and Furious, and a couple others.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's basically what the book was about. I never really wanted to write a memoir. It came just by accident. I think I just started learning TikTok during the pandemic when he had all this time, and everybody was really nostalgic and I started posting about like the 2000s media growing up, like the things I just mentioned, like Memoirs
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Geisha and like the car show scene. And people started to, I mean, those are the videos that started going viral. So,
yeah, yeah,
with TikTok, you just kind of go where when something hits, you go in that direction. So I just
for
started
sure.
posting about that. And then um, I was doing that for a year and having a lot of fun creating that content. And then the spa shootings happened during the pandemic. And what happened was that a young man went and shot 8 people at massage parlors, and then 6 of them were Asian women. And in my opinion, it was definitely like Asian fetish related and like sexually motivated. But
Mhm.
the press said it was not. So I think a lot of Asians were mad about that. And speaking about that, it kind of made me reflect back on how I might have contributed to the Asian fetish by being a pinup model in my
Mhm.
youth. And that kind of ultimately inspired the idea for the book.
But no, I really liked the book. I guess I should probably make a quick note that, well, as like clearly there's definitely like hard topics in the book. So if anyone like really struggles with those, it would be kind of hard. But I always try to remind myself that like if it's hard for me to read, it was even harder for you to write. So I'm very impressed that you did. So can you, I feel like this isn't a topic that is really discussed that often. Can you give like a couple of examples of someone who might have an Asian fetish that seem subtle or harmless, like at first glance?
Yeah, so I never want to categorize anyone as having an Asian fetish because, like, you don't know what's going on in their head,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
And a guy might have happened to date a few Asian women in a row and legitimately fell in love with each of them, and they happen to be Asian, and he doesn't have a fetish,
yeah, yeah.
So I don't want to put the label on anyone. But what I would define as an Asian fetish, a very good example is if you watched White Lotus. There was a
Mhm.
character in the last White Lotus, I think it was White Lotus 3, that went viral. And it was because he had a scene where he was just talking about how he was trying to find himself, and how he found himself was moving to Thailand and basically as many Asian girls as he could think of.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. And that's like, uh, he ultimately, well, it doesn't matter what he ultimately decided, but it's basically that using objectifying disposable
yeah.
um, kind of example. The example I've been kind of using, obviously, I don't know this person personally, and I can't like say he has an Asian fetish, but like this is kind of the hallmarks of it. So Post Malone, um,
Oh, okay.
he's been known to date several Asian girls. And then his last fiance, I believe she's around 30, and he had a baby with her. She's, I think, Korean.
Hmm.
And then they broke up recently because he's all over the news with like a 20-year-old college student Asian girl just parading her around, buying her bags and presents.
Yeah,
So I was like, if I were that fiance, I would feel like so, I don't know. Like it's one thing. So that isn't like limited to Asian women, the disposability, let's just trade her
yeah,
in
yeah.
for a younger model or whatever. But to me, that seems like it seems like the Asian fetish to me.
Yeah,
But
I mean that's
I don't know.
fair.
Yeah, yeah.
You said in the book Nicolas Cage, and I never thought about that. but he also
Yeah.
has like a pretty decent track record of that.
Yes, I will point out he is marrying the Asian women, so then you're assuming at least he's like in love and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wanting to have a life with them forever. So,
Yeah.
but the troubling part about his pairing is first of all the age gap, and like his women look like teenagers.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so that to me is troubling, and the power dynamics that obviously come from that. But yeah, I will point out he's not like,
Truly disposing.
yeah, he's not truly disposing.
Yeah, yeah, no, that is fair. I feel like that kind of bleeds into the next point, which is like, what are your thoughts on someone having a fetish or a preference in dating? Because this is something that like me and my roommates have talked about a lot, probably on the podcast. And I don't know, we kind of like, I don't know if we ever actually came up with the answer to that. So I don't know what your
There
thoughts
is
are.
not a clear answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like so much a case by case basis. But like, um, the one thing is, a lot of Asian women date white guys. So when we say we encounter the Asian fetish, then other people are like, well, don't you have a white fetish? Because you're like
Mm,
dating a bunch of white
yeah.
guys. But I think the difference is that as a woman, I don't like sexualize men in that way. Like when I'm dating a man, I'm looking for like a boyfriend, a partner,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not looking for someone to go on to the next one. There's like
Yeah.
no disposability of guys involved. So I think like it's just not a fetish because we're not sexualizing the men, first of all.
Yeah.
That would be more of a preference. And I bring up in the book for Asian women in some situations, it's what's called internalized racism. Um, because there are some Asian women who say they don't date Asian men. And I think that's like not, it's a hurtful thing to say for
Mhm.
Asian men to hear, you know what I mean? And I think that's internalized racism, as in like when you're growing up in America, the white man is like the ideal. He's the homecoming king. He's the baseball player. He's the one who wins the hero at the end of every
Yeah.
movie. So that's like what you think, oh, that is like the ideal man. So that's kind of a form of internalized racism when you don't see yourself on TV or you don't see your people on TV, so you idealize another culture.
Right. Right. Do you think it has to do as well with honestly, I don't know. Like living in America, just the like population statistics. Like, do you think that women in Japan also date white men, or do you think it's more because that's the like surplus here?
I have brought that up before because I'm like, white men are everywhere in America.
It's
Like, it
hard
just
not to.
makes
Yeah.
sense that we're gonna date white guys. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that what I've encountered is that white guys are a lot more, they pursue pretty hard. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as in, I think Asian guys maybe they're not as not as heavily pursuing.
Hmm.
So that might be also a factor. Yeah, I think, but yeah, I do. The argument is that, well, Latina girls don't date out as much as Asian girls do, because I think Asian girls have the highest percentage. But yes,
Okay.
you are right that in Japan, yeah, I think the Japanese women there want to date Japanese men, and same in Korea, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that. Plus, I think it makes it like more concerning that if the population is so small, why are you only dating these
Yeah,
women?
yeah,
Yeah.
that is what I pointed out too, because then you actually kind of have to seek it out, right? Because it's
You
like
do.
not everywhere.
Yeah, I did like reading your book that you also said it was a case by case days or like yeah, just that it was case by case because I agree with that. And it is like such a narrow line to walk and I feel like you kind of know it when you see it.
Yeah,
It's one of
yeah.
those things. Yeah.
But
So,
it's really sad because I have a friend who's married to an Asian woman. He's a white guy,
mhm.
and she's the first Asian woman he ever dated. He just happened to fall in love with her. But like he
Yeah.
gets comments like here and there from people, and he's like, "But I've only dated one
Yeah, yeah,
Asian."
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is sad because,
So,
like, if someone genuinely doesn't have a fetish and they fell in love with someone, it is frustrating to hear those comments because it actually has nothing to do with you whatsoever.
yeah, at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, I'll move on to the next one. But in your book, you have that chapter that discusses your relationship with your father and then like, the effect that it had on your self esteem and your view of male attention and validation. Could you elaborate like a little bit more on that for people that haven't read your book?
Yeah, definitely. And I always want to preface this with like my dad is such a kind man and he was available in every way and always present in the family. But
Yeah.
I think in the Asian culture, the dad is just like not the emotional support person. And
Yeah.
maybe for a different girl who I just like naturally need a lot of verbal affirmation. And that's like maybe my love language. And maybe if that's not your love language, it wouldn't have bothered you as much.
Yeah, sure.
Just for me, I really needed that, like someone to tell me I was beautiful and that they loved me. And I was, what you tell little daughters.
Hmm.
I didn't get that. So then I really, I think, sought that validation for the rest of my life from men. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just because that was something that um, affected me personally. I think other people in that situation may have reacted differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that chapter was so interesting because like I've heard other women talk about that. Um, and like I really admire the fact that you like put an entire chapter to that in your book because I feel like A, it's kind of hard to admit that, and B, it's hard to admit that publicly like you did. But it is relatable where I was thinking about it after I read the chapter and I was like, oh, I think a lot of I also have a like I have a great dad, so I don't necessarily relate to it, but I think of like some of my friends and like their friends and stories I've heard. I'm like, I think that is so relatable to a lot of women.
Yeah, and there's a lot of situations with single mothers. So I think there isn't even a dad at all, and that can
Hmm.
definitely have effects or not. It could be totally fine. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about like how you feel about the progression of Asian women being represented in media as a whole. And you mentioned like several women in your books and modern day media. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, growing up, there really wasn't anybody. There's very few. I think Lucy Liu was a name everybody knew, and that was like the only
Yeah.
name. But now it's such a huge change. I mean, I wouldn't have never thought when I was a kid that K-pop and Korean would be on the radio. Like
Yeah.
they're literally singing Korean on the radio and people can't even understand the words and they're like listening to the songs. And
Yeah.
some people are even learning Korean. But like Blackpink and like I'm a huge Lisa fan, so
Hmm.
that's really exciting. And then also social media really, I think, makes everything equal because like you don't need to be signed by a record label or you don't need a movie to put you in their film. Like you can gain 5 million followers by yourself for just being
Yeah.
yourself or like for
Yeah.
being a cook, for being a nurse, for being a fashion girl. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
really gives a lot more representation.
I feel like that was like a question that I didn't think about before I read your book. So I feel like I don't have like a lot to add to that. But I thought that whole chapter was super interesting. Oh, okay. So I wanted to talk to you about this. There's like several historical facts that you went into in the book, which I had literally no idea about. One was like the real history of geishas. One was the original versions of like several well-known children's story. And I would love if you talked about those. But the one that stood out to me the most was the comfort stations in 1945. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a very obscure fact. I definitely didn't know about it. And like, I'm sure most Asians don't even know about it. I
Yeah,
think people know about comfort women because it's something that happened in Japan where like Japanese soldiers were pretty notorious for being horrifying. And
yeah,
they would set up comfort stations where they would kidnap Korean women and other East Asian women and make them basically prostitutes, like
it's
sexually
horrible.
traffic them. Yeah. So, when the Americans, we won the war, I think that was World War II, and then the forces poured into Japan because Japan lost. They set up comfort stations. I think it was in Tokyo, and the American soldiers poured in, and the women who were working there said that the sex with the soldiers was ghastly and animalistic, like it was disturbing sex that was being had on them, and they had to service individually like 15 to 60 men a day per woman.
It's so, yeah,
Yeah. And finally, they had to shut this station down because it was rampant with STDs.
yeah,
And then when they shut it down, the rapes in town went from like 30 a day or 40 a day to 330 a day.
which is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the whole concept behind him was basically like if we provide women to these men, they won't rape other women, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, which is in itself horrifying.
And these are soldiers. These aren't
Yeah, like
like,
they're supposed
like these
to have
are
like,
it's like
yeah,
supposed to be the heroes.
yeah. Oh my God. I think that in itself was like probably the craziest thing in your book that I read. What are your thoughts on like the geishas and like the like well-known children's stories that are also in your book?
Yeah, so Memoir of a Geisha was really huge during my, I guess, 20s. And so, and I read the book and absolutely loved the book.
Hmm.
Not everybody knows that the book is written by a white guy.
Oh,
So,
I didn't. Yeah.
yeah, and the book is beautifully written, but it's also kind of written Memoirs of a Geisha like as if it's a true story, but it's totally fictional. And in the movie, which is basically a child sex trafficking movie, because I think they kidnap or she's sold by her parents at the age of like 14 or 15 to the
Yeah.
geisha house. And then when she becomes of age, which is probably, they don't say the age, but assuming it's like 15 or something, they
Hmm.
sell her virginity off to like the highest bidder.
It's so bad.
Yeah,
It's
and
yeah.
that's like glamorized in the movie. It's like the whole build up in the movie. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
real geishas, because geisha in Japan are actually artists. Like they learn instruments, like classical
Mm.
instruments, and they learn art and they perform. They say that this is not true, that they sell off their virginity. Like that's
Hmm.
just fabricated. And I'm sure there's like one or, some geishas who would do it on the
Yeah.
side. Like there's some waitresses who probably, like in
Yeah,
any
yeah.
industry, but
For
this was
sure.
not something that was known to be done amongst geisha. And
Yeah.
yeah, that movie kind of just kept promoting that idea of women, submissive Asian women who are at the service of men.
Yeah. This is not on the list at all. I was just thinking of it. What are your thoughts on Mulan? Because I was trying to think of like where is it, and totally correct me if I'm wrong, is are geishas in that movie?
I don't think so. And I think
Okay.
Mulan is a positive representation. I don't think I've watched a movie a long time ago. I didn't
Yeah,
watch the
same.
most recent one. But because the story is about a girl who pretends to be a soldier because she's not allowed to fight, right? So I think
Yes.
that's actually a really positive
Yeah.
representation overall. Yeah.
What about the childhood, like childhood stories, the versions of them? I also had no idea about that before I read your book.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you know, but like most like fairy tales, I think they were more cautionary tales, like that were
Oh, yeah,
supposed to scare kids or something,
yeah.
because they were really horrifying. Like
Yeah.
I think when The Little Mermaid came out again, the remake, we all kind of discussed how the crux of the movie is kind of anti-feminism because it's like
Yeah.
promoting that the whole goal of Ariel in that movie is just to win that prince by any means possible. She'll give up her
Yes.
voice, she'll change her body, she'll like do whatever she needs to get the man. So
Yeah.
that's like a terrible idea to promote to kids, first of all, like to little
Yeah.
girls. But second of all, the original fairy tale was a Hans Christian tale, and he wrote it. And the story is very different from the Disney version because the original version, not only does she change from a tail into legs, but like she has to endure excruciating pain, like
Yeah.
pins and needles and stabbing in her feet when she walks, and her feet bleed.
Yeah.
So she's willing to do this to win the prince. And then the sea witch also cuts off her tongue. So she's like super, super in pain trying to chase after the prince. The prince doesn't marry her anyways. And in the fairy tale, in the Hans Christian version, he makes her carry the train of the wife as they're going down,
That's
yeah.
insane. No, that's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah, and then she commits suicide. And
Oh
that's
my
the end.
God.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she doesn't
Yeah.
win him and she commits suicide. So that's like the actual fairy tale that it originated from.
Yeah. That's wow. That's
But they
actually
took it
crazy.
and cleaned it up and made it like all happy because she wins him
Yeah.
at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also he falls in love with her without saying a word. Like she literally can't speak. So
Yeah.
it also shows that like, oh, okay, maybe like nothing about her matters except her looks,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, weirdly, my mom, because I was thinking about that when I read it, and I think I've seen The Little Mermaid maybe once at a friend's house. We watch Disney movies. Weirdly, my mom never was really let us watch that one, and I should probably ask her, but I was like, I wonder if it had anything to do with that.
Oh, I wonder if she
Yeah.
she was like, this is a bad message.
Yeah, my mom was pretty tuned into that. But yeah, like as an adult, I had no idea about that. And then moving on to like things that I feel like people have no idea about. I'm very interested in this question about like anime and K-pop because this is something that me and my roommates have been on for a long time, like anime. And I felt like very validated when I read your book because sometimes I feel like people didn't really like listen to why we didn't like that. And then if like enough people don't listen to why you like something, you start feeling like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. And then I read your book and I was like, oh, there's definitely like at least some basis for why this makes me uncomfortable.
Mm.
So like what are your thoughts on like anime and K-pop?
Well, there's definitely lots of problematic aspects to anime. Not all anime, of course. There's like plenty of
Mm-hmm.
anime, like Pokemon was totally fine and not. But
Yeah.
there's, a proliferation of like schoolgirls with really big breasts bouncing around. That's what I
Yeah.
picture when I see anime.
Yeah.
And I think in Japan, it's also legal to draw pedophilia. Like it's not legal to do it or like to shoot it, but like I think if you
Yeah.
write draw it and animate, it's allowed.
And no, I highlighted that in your book. I thought that was insane. Yeah.
Yeah. And the legal age was only recently moved from legal age of consent from 13 to 16, like I think in the past 5 years. So that's
Mm,
like also really troubling.
yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, I definitely think that because in anime, there's also like an otaku culture where like I guess men start to imagine that women are like the anime characters. So then it's just like
Mm,
promoting more of that submissive image.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And like thankfully well not thankfully, but like I've never really watched it or like looked into it. But I also noticed like there's this trend where if you want to like make a group of men unhappy or like upset, just say you don't like anime.
Oh,
And
really?
oh, yeah, it's actually insane. There's like a few things that can piss a group of men off more than like as fast as you can. And one of them is say like you don't like anime.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I've never,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, this has come up several times. And then like after the first or second time that happened, I was like, well, why is this so upsetting to you? Like, if there's nothing here, and if I'm completely wrong, why is everyone so mad? Oh, I felt like the second thing was also like, there's a certain type of man that I meet who's like dedicated to anime. And I don't know. When I read your book, I was like, oh, I feel like this makes more sense.
Yeah, it definitely, I don't watch anime much myself, but there's definitely a lot of stereotypes played out in it, I believe. And
Yeah.
then there's like fan service, which I think it's just like anime characters like, oh, bending over and showing her underwear,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think there was a sentence in your book that talked about how like the disturbing what was it? I forget exactly what you said, but it was something about how like the disturbing pattern of this in Japan got seeped into the US through anime.
Yeah. And also, yeah, I think I love Japan. I love Korea. I want to
Mm,
visit there all the time. I wouldn't want to be a woman there. I feel like it's
mm.
really tough. Like we're talking about we're living in a patriarchy here in America, like it's even worse in Asia.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I think women are even more expected to be like, flight attendants are still really beautiful. If you ever go on the Asian airlines,
Yeah.
they still are allowed to regulate their weight and their your height and so
Really.
yeah, so it's not
I
like
didn't know that.
here. Yeah. So there's a lot of expectations there and um in K-pop, I love K-pop by the way, like I
Okay.
love Blackpink, but like the way they treat the K-pop stars in the factories and like
Hmm.
um I feel like Korean men in South Korea are perhaps have some of the most patriarchal ideals. So some
Yeah.
of those are reflected in K-pop because the girls join as young as like 14 and 15 and then they're kind of
Hmm.
like sexualized and like, um it just seems like the message is like the younger the better,
Yeah.
which I don't
Yeah.
think is a good message to send anywhere.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, that's so interesting to me. Just like shifting slightly, this is like where Your book was really good and I loved reading it. There were like certain parts that I had to like stop and like take breaks reading, just because of like, just the message of it, the content. But you write about a sexual assault in your book that occurred when you were younger. And there was a sentence that like really stood out to me. I copy pasted it in my notes, but um it was like, yeah, why didn't you leave is the same question I've asked myself countless times. That thought and the video haunted me for more than 25 years. And I read that and I was thinking like again of like other women that I know and like have had these conversations with. And I think that feeling of like guilt and blame is something a lot of women can relate to, even if it's to a far, 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 far like less extent, like not even a sexual assault. So what are your advice, like what is your advice to other women who are maybe struggling with that to whatever extent it is?
It's so hard because once you're in that situation, you kind of freeze and shut down and
Yeah.
disassociate. I think it's more of a matter of like trying to prevent getting into the situation in the first place.
Yeah,
That's like the
yeah.
easier way to go about it. For me, like if I were somebody who was pursuing modeling or like acting and like someone hit me up on Instagram and they looked really legitimate and invited me for audition, I would say bring a friend with you. If I just
Okay.
brought a friend with me, that would have changed the situation. Yeah, I think a lot of situations that could have been potentially dangerous for me in my life after that were saved because there were good friends around, like
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're too drunk or something. And but luckily there's like friends around that you trust.
Yeah.
I think it's really having people you trust around you.
Yeah. No, that's a good answer. And I feel like sometimes that answer gets like kind of villainized a little if you say prevention, but I do think I always tell people like I wish we lived in a world where women didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that would be ideal. I would love to live in a world where like if you were completely like incapacitated, nothing would happen to you. But like we don't. And so it is like more crucial to set yourself up for success with safety versus not.
Yeah, it is like I never would want to victim blame either. I'm just not sure because I don't know what I would have told myself like in that situation. Just say no and walk out of there. Could I have
Yeah.
actually physically done it? Like
Yeah.
being that scared and frozen? I don't know. Um, And I think when you're going through like assault situation, you don't know if you say no, what they're gonna do. Are they
Yeah.
going to get
Yeah.
violent? Are they gonna? So it's, I wish I had an answer of like some advice to give while they're in the situation, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, no, that's so
That's why the
fair.
only thing I can even think of is like, oh, maybe here's some way to spot it beforehand.
Yeah. And I actually do agree that's like the best advice you could give. And that was also part of the book that like even though it's hard to read, I really appreciate that you wrote about it because it's very hard to talk about. Obviously, you would know much better than I would.
Yeah, I think it's important just to talk about things so we like don't have these shameful secrets,
Yeah.
because like so much of rape is underreported. Like we think rape, whatever
Yeah.
the statistics are, it's probably double that because most people aren't saying anything.
I have heard that. I also feel like there's like been a good progression in society where women are kind of allowed to say now that like, oh, I couldn't leave because I felt afraid. Like I feel like 20 years ago that might not have flown the same way.
No, yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy women weren't, how little women were believed just 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And we still have a long way to go, but like at least it's
Yeah.
a lot better.
And I think your book is also so helpful in that way because it isn't that long ago what you're talking about, but it's still like it's very, very cool to see like the difference between what you're speaking about versus now, even if it's we still have like a ways to go. It's very cool to see.
Yeah.
And then the last question is like, is there anything, which is kind of what we just talked about, like, is there anything making you hopeful or positive about the future when it comes to like this whole topic?
I think we've made so much progress. I mean, I think we're like having a couple steps back at the moment, but I always think like
Yeah.
progress is not linear. It's like two steps forward, one step back. Yeah, because reproductive rights are getting taken away at the moment and it's horrible.
Hmm.
But like overall, like think with Me Too and like with um what's happening with the Diddy trial. Like he got away with it for so long and now
Hmm.
we didn't get the result that he probably deserved, but like he's never going to get back to where he was before. Like
Yeah.
everyone sees him for the predator that he is now. And
Yeah.
like when I was growing up, men like that were just getting away with it and it was fine.
Yeah.
Everybody was just doing it. So I think we made great progress since then because we're getting some accountability.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. There's at least some accountability. And then I didn't include this in the outline because it hadn't happened yet. I saw that you posted a reel or a TikTok about the Love Island like controversy, but I didn't watch it because I wanted to ask you like in person, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, definitely. So what happened is basically on Love Island, Sierra Ortega, she had in past videos, I think like three separate times over the years, said a slur that refers to Chinese people's eyes.
Hmm.
And she said it in a way that was insulting, I guess, to Asians because basically she said, "Oh, my eyes are looking too Asian. I need to get some Botox to fix them."
Yes.
Um, and obviously, a lot of people got outraged and she got let go from the show. But what I was commenting on, because I don't believe in cancel culture, I don't believe in tearing people down for mistakes if they're
Okay.
willing to learn about it. Because it sounded like she was sorry and she's like, not going to keep using that word. So I have no more anger at her or anything. But what shocked me was how many people did not know that that word is a slur or like
Yeah.
yeah, so many people didn't know. So I think it was good that it happened because it's kind of like an educational moment. Like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Asians find that word insulting, actually.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have like the majority stance on that where like she said something wrong, she took accountability and she moved on? Or do you feel like as an Asian person, you're like in the minority on that? Because I feel like as a whole, like people have been kind of really dogpiling on her for that.
Yeah, I think it's a little much at this point.
Okay.
Like, I mean, Diddy is out there like raping people, probably. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, Harvey Weinstein is raping people. Jeffrey Epstein, like what she did is not, it's not good what she did. And
Yeah.
like don't do that, don't say that word, but like it's just not equivalent to some of the real horrible things that are happening right now. And I
Yeah.
also wonder if we're being harder on her as a woman because there's
I was about to
other
say, yeah.
men who have said things and they're not getting the same level. Like I think there's other Love Island guys who have like reposted racist videos or something and
Yeah.
nobody's going after them. They're like sending her death threats and they're like calling ICE on her family. Like I
Which is
think that's
insane. Yeah.
unacceptable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a conversation about it. I think and then, let's see if she continues using the word, then you can dogpile on her if she
Yeah.
keeps using it or something, you
That's
know?
fair. That was the last question on my list. Is there anything else that you like wanted to talk about that you feel like you didn't?
No, I feel like we covered a lot and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited that you read the book.
Yes, I loved the book. Um, for sure. I'm definitely going to order my own copy when it comes out. Kaila's book, Fetishized, will be out August 19th, and you can find her socials and the link to pre order the book below.